climate change increasingly impacting the state of Florida and beyond. Mitigating these effects is the challenge of our lifetime. Today, climate reality leaders Andrew Ellis and myself, Joni Roberts, will show you how you can accelerate your clean energy transition with the Inflation Reduction Act. We will explore how the climate crisis impacts businesses and the benefits and opportunities that are available through the Inflation Reduction Act and the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, the largest climate and energy investment in U.S. history, aimed at reducing U.S. greenhouse gas emissions by 40% by 2030. With the support of the IRA, the sustainable future we envision is achievable. To make it a reality, we need action from local business leaders. This session will show you what you can do to lead the change. And thank you everyone for being here. This presentation is hosted by the North Florida Green Chamber. I am the incoming chair of the North Florida Green Chamber, and that will begin this month in November. This presentation was put together by a team, the Climate Business Working Group of the Climate Reality Project. And these guys and ladies worked a long time on this, more than 1 year, to bring this together and have it vetted by Al Gore's Climate Reality Project team for the leadership training. But there's a lot in this presentation today that we're going to share with you. And it's also co-sponsored by Evolution University, which is my organization. I am the founder and chief evolution officer of it. And I have been a business professor and entrepreneur for a very long time. And what I know is that we are not preparing people today to get out in the business world and solve today's greatest challenges. And our greatest challenge really is climate change, and everything else feeds into that. So I created new frameworks, new processes to help onboard organizations and people and do knowledge transfer, and to help organizations have sustainability be the way business is done. Not a niche department, not a little tracking of data and reporting in a sustainability report, but the way we do it all. Okay, so today I'm so thrilled to have with us Andrew Ellis. He is an environmental scientist, a climate reality project mentor. He is my mentor. I did the training in April in New York City, and I just did it again on the online version that just happened in October. So I've been with the group since the spring, and he has been with Climate Reality Project since I think 2013, starting in the Los Angeles chapter. He's been very, very involved in California and bringing this kind of information to businesses and universities and people, and has just been an amazing mentor to so many in the program. So really thrilled to have you here, Andrew, and would love for you to share something and at least say hello at this point.
Thank you so much for the invitation, Joni. I appreciate this. One of the things that I'm interested in, I'll just say a little bit about my climate story. I started becoming interested in this in my interest in paleontology and the study of dinosaurs and mass extinctions and climate change, and how climate change is related to mass extinctions, and particularly in the deep, deep past time. So that brought me to train with the former vice president, Mr. Gore, in 2013. And I, as Joni mentioned, was lucky enough to be invited to help form the Los Angeles chapter. And then Dean, who is on the call this morning, as well as Hal, asked me to join the Climate Business Working Group leadership team. That's how I find myself here with you today. I also enjoy being a mentor to many, I guess, hundreds and hundreds of climate leaders as they go through these leadership core training. So happy to have you as a mentee, Joni, and I'm happy to be here as a speaker.
Wonderful. Yes. And as we go through this presentation today, you'll notice there's a lot of information. It is dense, and you will have the opportunity to follow up with Andrew after. If you need more information, you can follow up with me. And So don't worry about capturing all of it. We want to give you as much as we can and give you a great start, and then have this be a continuous conversation, not a one and done. All right, so today we are going to bring awareness to business leaders, and we want to summarize the Inflation Reduction Act. We want to identify some opportunities and risks, and then we're going to invite you to take the Electrify My Life pledge. All right, just know that this is general information that regular people have worked really hard on putting together for everyone, but it is not tax guidance, and you need to make your own decisions with the information we're giving you today. All right, so we'll go over a few sections, which is one is how do we get here? And I'll open us up with that. Then I'll hand it to Andrew to talk more about what is the IRA, the show me the money, because there's a lot of money here, everyone, to be had, and to be a part of that. And then make a plan to start doing this and go farther on your net zero journey. But let's just take a moment and think about the why. Why should we even do this? Why should we take action? Why should we go for these net zero goals? Well, one area of consideration is your employees. They are definitely wanting this. And research shows that if companies are not aligning with their values, people are leaving. These are cultural values, social values, environmental values, and millennials. This is especially for millennials, the Gen Y and Gen Z, and they are going to be 50% of the workforce in just a couple of years. So this is the majority of the workers. So we all have to keep changing and responding to what's in front of us. And the younger generations are very conscientious of what they are facing in the midst of the outcome of several hundred years of industrialization. All right, so 74% of millennials want a job where their work has a purpose, and that purpose is beyond profits. All right, and 3 out of 4 millennials believe it's important to fight climate change. Now, 41% of Gen Z believe addressing the climate crisis is critical. So as the generations get younger, this becomes a more urgent matter to them. And Gen Z, they are right around like mid-20s in the workplace already. All right, so what about your customers? Why does it matter to your customers? Well, research again shows that most people believe that it is extremely or very important that companies implement programs to improve the environment. This is across all generations. Then we have the supply chain. And we know we are already experiencing the impacts of climate change. We are already living the headlines. We are already experiencing the impacts. And so with this comes supply chain disruption, and we're having more intense, longer lasting, more severe weather events like hurricanes, floods, droughts, freezes, and wildfires. And we just experienced several of those right here in Florida with hurricanes and tropical storms, and then a hurricane that went and landed in Asheville and North Carolina in the mountains and dumped a tremendous amount of water there. So there are no safe places anymore. This is a global problem we now need to solve, and we can. So when these disruptions happen, as we know, facilities get shut down. I mean, they're inaccessible, the roadways, delivery, crops are gone. It's just one thing after another. So doing business as we've been doing it is absolutely working against us. The time is now for us to change. So these weather disasters are especially hard on small businesses. So small businesses are more vulnerable to disasters than big corporations. They're less resilient to the hits. And 40% of small businesses fail to recover after a big disaster. You all, that is a big number. So why does it matter? The energy transition. So the Inflation Reduction Act actually helps us get where we need to go with by changing our energy supply and the related infrastructure, so our energy is made with renewable energy from like sun and wind rather than burning fossil fuels, which we all know in this audience here is causing us a lot of issues. So economic benefits. There are a lot of opportunities here to address these risks by becoming more resilient, by reducing operational costs, by increasing profits. This is not just an expense, but it's an investment, and it's an investment that leads to better profits. It's also going to meet your customers' demands. You'll be more admired as a business for doing the right thing and the morally responsible thing as well. It'll help you improve your brand, recruit and retain employees, and help you protect our society. So it builds trust, and we need to have that trust back into the workplace. And this is a way industry can do that. So how can we make money, be prosperous, be profitable, while also making this world a better place? Well, that's the question we'll answer today. And Andrew will get into more details about that. So let's think about a little bit about how did we get here? How did we get here in this situation today? Well, fossil fuels may have, starting with coal, helped our industrial revolution and bring a lot of, in many ways, prosperity in different ways for society. However, we've gone way too far with it. And we are now spewing 162 million tons of man-made global warming pollution into our atmosphere every 24 hours. It's an incredible hit to the planet, and more than our planet can process, digest, and recover from on a daily basis. Hence, all the effects that we just talked about. So the largest source of global warming pollution is most definitely the burning of fossil fuels. And we see distinct correlations and causation of fossil fuels with global warming and the pollution that is created here. And as industry has accelerated over the industrial revolutions, we see this keeps dramatically increasing. So we're not solving the problem so far. We keep adding to it every day. Here we do have a little dip back in 2020. You all remember that? Remember that pause? And everyone's like, oh, wow, look, the dolphins came back and the animals started, being happier, and the air got cleaner, and we're all like, this is really nice. Well, boom, boom. The pandemic ended, and here we are again on that same wheel, spinning around and around and around. So very important, the 10 hottest years on record have been the last 10 years. We can't keep doing what we're doing and expecting different results. We truly have to change. So climate change is a threat to human well-being and planetary health. We are impacted by this too. And what I like to say to people is, think about 100 years from now, and how will we be judged? How will we be judged? And we will be judged harshly for the amount of pollution we put in our air. I mean, that will look ridiculous to people who are living on the planet 100 years from now with pure renewable energy. And it impacts our health, asthma, lung issues, respiratory especially, but it's pollution that we're walking out in, and you may not see it every day as you do in this image here, but it's always out there. Every time a car drives down the street, you're inhaling it. So there's a rapidly closing window of opportunity to secure a livable and sustainable future for all. So people love status quo and they love what's known. And we've been stuck there way too long. So now it's time to shake that up. And the choices and actions implemented in this decade will have impacts now and for thousands of years. This is big. So that's from the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, where the Paris Agreement was signed in 2015 and 2016. So climate disasters, again, impacting small businesses. Operational impact, damage to facilities and workforce disruption. We all know it. We've experienced it as customers or as owners. Scarcity cost of resources, supply chain disruption with food, water, and energy. We just went through that with a global pandemic. We know what happens. Insurance costs or lack of availability. Wow, Florida is hit extremely hard with insurance costs on the residential level and on the corporate level. We know insurance companies can't keep up with this. They can't just keep absorbing the costs, so the costs come back. It's more expensive. Reputational opportunity. As Americans become more concerned about the extreme weather issues, the company's sustainability efforts become a differentiator of their culture and brand. So who are the leaders? Who are the ones who can say, we can do this, we can change, and we're going to lead that change? All right, with this, I would love to hand it over to Andrew to take us through what is the IRA.
Thank you so much, Joni. It's my pleasure to introduce some of the concepts of what is in the IRA. But I think the best thing I'd like to say that will help you for this is that I'm going to put a link in the chat. I'll put it in a number of times in the chat, but it's a resource document. So no need to take notes. All of this is in the resource document. And I'll just drop that into the chat for everyone to either download or take a look at their convenience. If you could advance to the next slide, Joni, I would appreciate it.
Yes.
The Inflation Reduction Act is a large amount of money. I'll just share with everybody, it's $369 billion. But let me suggest that when we couple it with the $1.2 billion Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, which is more focused on renewable energy and infrastructure, not necessarily rebates and tax credits on climate, but the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law with the Inflation Reduction Act is really significant amount of money that has been allocated both for climate and renewable energy. Let me just share with everyone what the spending was like in the 1990s, about $5 billion. Through the 2008, before the Great Recession, it was still about $5 billion. And then after the Recovery Act and Reinvestment Act for the Obama administration, the spending on climate and renewable energy was about $20 billion. But with the Inflation Reduction Act, let me just share with everyone, it's almost $100 billion a year. This is very, very important to kickstart the transition to renewable energy. So it's a very large amount of money with a significant impact already on our ability to generate electricity in the country. So it's already changed our grid structure. It's already changing our renewable energy. So next slide, please. Simply put, it's the largest piece of federal legislation, and I think everyone has heard this before, but I just can't emphasize enough how important this legislation is to everyone. Next slide, please. It is projected, if we continue on the pathway that we're looking at, it has the potential to lower United States carbon emissions to 40% below the levels of 2005 in just the next 7 years. It's actually 6 years now. I used to say 7, but I think we're have to say 6 now. Let me share with everyone what the historical pathway is. About a little over 6.5 gigatons of emissions in the United States was projected through the 2020s to fall to about 5.5 gigatons. And with the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law and the Inflation Reduction Act, we're not going to meet our Paris goals of about 3.2 gigatons of carbon emissions, but it gets us a lot further along the path than our current policy. So here's the gold line showing you what the projected emissions reductions could look like, what current policy would look like under different scenarios, and then what our Paris Agreement targets are. So that'll show you IRA doesn't get us to Paris, but it gets us further down the road. Next slide, please. Just to share with everyone, there is about 1 billion tons of carbon emission taken out of the atmosphere every year. And a lot of that, I'll just break it down for everyone. Let's just say 36% of the reductions in carbon emissions is related to how we generate electricity, mostly with coal-fired power plants, some in natural gas. Clean vehicles, it's going to reduce our emissions by 30%. The improvement of our industrial efficiency, 9% for land. Buildings alone, just improving the efficiency of buildings is going to reduce our emissions by 6%. So it's a huge opportunity for businesses to pay attention to this Inflation Reduction Act tax credits and incentives. Next slide, please. The Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, let me just share with everybody, also contains a lot of the infrastructure that we're going to need to improve our grid. So it's not quite IRA and climate focused, but it is infrastructure and renewable energy focused. So it's $1.2 trillion. So that is a big amount of money. Let me just share these numbers. I'm blown away every time I speak about this subject. $91 billion for transit, 66 for passenger and freight rail, 18 for vehicle electrification. So these are huge numbers. $50 billion for climate resilience. That's an enormous amount of money to municipalities to protect some of their most vulnerable citizens from the ravages of climate change and sea level rise and extreme weather events that we're all experiencing. And Joni just mentioned the North Carolina situation with Hurricane Helene. And then right after that, we were impacted by the Hurricane Milton. Joni knows that I was raised in Houston with Dean. I should mention, Dean and Nal are joining me as Dean lives in Houston as well, and we're very familiar with hurricanes, Joni. So I'm so sensitive to the people in North Carolina and flooding and what happened in all through northern Florida. So this is very important to protect municipalities. Some of the new funding, let me just share with everybody, in the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, this is new spending, almost $500 billion. But if we add in how much of this is climate, next slide, if you just advance one, you can see the green area of this chart will represent those areas that are going to impact the climate and carbon emissions as well. So lots of money in the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law for climate. The bipartisan infrastructure is designed to bend the emissions curve. So let me just say that it gives quite a bit of spending discretion to the policymakers, and those policymakers exist both in the state level and at the municipal level and county level as well. Next slide, please. This is why it's very important. And everyone, well, I should mention that I'm also at the Los Angeles chapter, a member of the help run the legislative committee. So as climate activists, we encourage everyone to be active with their legislators. Some of the reasons why the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law and the Inflation Reduction Act are so important is that they promote environmental justice, domestic fair-paying jobs, clean energy, and they put us on a pathway to achieve our emissions goals. That's the first reason. But there's other reasons that are equally as important is that it can help us dramatically lower emissions and combat this concerning and growing issue we refer to as the climate crisis. And as a paleontologist in a study of deep time, this has happened repeatedly over and over again. And we're very aware of what happens when you poison the oceans and crash the food webs and raise the temperature of the planet. So next slide, please. There is a third reason, and I'll just mention from a business standpoint, the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law and the IRA also help us achieve parity and competitive equality with some of the European Union operations, things in China and Asia and Australia and other places in the world. It contains also a significant component of the funding for an area we refer to as environmental justice. This is an area where a lot of the 40% of the funds in the IRA are directed at communities that have been historically locked out of the climate finance area, or maybe have been experiencing the location of industrial operations and operations that have an impact on their environment in communities that have been historically disadvantaged. And as an aside, Joni knows that I was an environmental scientist cleaning up with the Environmental Protection Agency, cleaning up hazardous waste sites at the Superfund sites all up and down California. So I'm very familiar with this environmental justice issue. The amount of money for block grants, pollution at airports, transition to heavy-duty vehicle, electric, clean heavy-duty vehicles, and forcing polluters to pay the Superfund tax being reimposed, and some money being directed to affordable housing efficiency, air quality is extremely important and part of the work that we all want to encourage. The next slide, please. The other things that we would like to share about the environmental justice is that it allows the financing. We call this the Green Bank. This is dedicated to low income and disadvantaged. This is a lot of money that is being opened up to areas in tribal nations and tribal communities, municipalities, and areas that have been historically not these funds to work on the infrastructure and in renewable energy build outs are historically locked out of disadvantaged communities that don't have access to green financing. So a lot of this money is available in loans and grants to areas and communities that need this help with climate resilience, clean electricity. So lots of rebates also for electrification and energy efficiency in the low and middle income housing. Next slide, please. Just so everyone is aware, we're not waiting to develop any of these technologies. All of this is off the shelf. We have the proven technology that can drive their deployment. This is all ready to go. Solar panels, the infrastructure, wind. Once we achieve net zero, I just want to make sure that everyone is aware that we have the potential to absolutely put the brakes on the global warming that is currently projected to be incrementally increasing. But as soon as we improve our emissions profiles, we're going to see carbon emissions in net zero have a big impact on the temperature and the rate of increase of the temperature. So next slide, please. And just we have a timeline that we're looking at as far as the projections now of atmosphere being taken out of the upper atmosphere within about 30 years after we improve our emissions output in accord with the 2015 Paris Climate Accords. So with the incentives in the IRA, I just want to share 85% of the total electricity it could be provided by carbon-free sources. This is a very encouraging number. 85% will take us a significant portion down the road of achieving our goals in net zero. Next slide, please. Globally, wind can supply enough in the wind belts of the planet. If we look at the westerlies and the trade winds, that we have enough wind globally on the planet to supply all of our energy consumption needs 40 times over. So there's plenty of wind on the planet. This is just wind alone without even talking about solar energy. So wind capacity is growing. Here's just a chart that shows you the exponential growth of the wind energy capacity. And we're located here in California, where we drive up to Palm Springs and see the windmills. So up all over the place, they're up and down areas in the United States, particularly in Texas and the windy areas. I'll just say windy areas. They're exploiting this wind capacity, and it's really encouraging. just so everyone knows, every hour we receive enough sunlight to power the entire planetary global needs of the planet for a full year. Every hour we get sunshine. So we've got plenty. And I'll just say, solar capacity is exponentially growing equally as much as wind. Next slide, please. The cost, I'll just say, has really come down from about $80 a watt to less than a dime a watt. So I just will say in fact, this computer that I'm talking to you on now is being powered by solar sunlight from California falling on my roof right now. So it's a wonderful opportunity. Since the IRA was passed, there's been just a significant expansion of the North American battery. Now, let me just say, why are you talking about batteries when you're talking about sunlight? We're talking about battery energy storage systems, BESS. And those BESS systems are really coming into play. These are solar collectors that are storing sunlight in power walls and energy generation storage systems. So that's an important thing. Next slide, please. If I could share with everyone a chart that shows you what the historical cost of electricity per megawatt hour has been, let me just share with everybody. If we look at natural gas, nuclear, and coal, the price hasn't changed, but the price of solar has really significantly dropped. This is the really significant information on this chart is the continual drop in the megawatt cost of the installation of solar renewable energy. It's just amazing. When you look at this chart, you can see nuclear power is actually getting more expensive, but solar is really, really quite, it's achieved already parity with fossil fuels and will continue to drop. So we're looking at solar incrementally increasing. Worldwide, more solar carbon-free sources are generating electricity than coal for the year 2023. So that's very impressive. Next slide. It can be expected and has been already responsible for almost 950 million panels. That's almost a billion. 120,000 wind turbines. These are the big ones. And then 2,300 of these major grid scale BESS systems, battery energy storage systems, to the US landscape. So we're going to add these to the energy grid over the next 7 years. And it has already just, it's reformed and the renewable energy structure. Go ahead, next slide, please. Let me just mention the cumulative production and sales of electric vehicles, both battery and plug-in hybrids, is also increasing exponentially up to almost 25 million now. So that is expected to only increase as time goes by. I think we're all familiar with how many new vehicles are sold. The Inflation Reduction Act provides tax credits. So let's back to the reasons why we can all access some of these tax credits from the IRA is in the way we move ourselves around the planet, and particularly in electric vehicles. Next slide, please. And let me just share, the sales of electric vehicles are not falling. You may have been heard some different information, but I'll just share with everybody, sales of electric vehicles are increasing. Next slide, please. We also want to, without providing the electric vehicle charging stations, we're not going to be successful, folks. So what we want to do is we're going to share with everyone in the bipartisan infrastructure law, the big one, the $1.2 trillion one, there's a lot of money for the build out of our vehicle charging stations, and particularly in rural areas, and as well as those areas that have been historically disadvantaged that don't have access to some of these charging stations. So this is going to be a big part of the renewable energy transition going forward. Next slide. So this brings us to the point where we have the opportunities before us. What will be the long-range impact of the Inflation Reduction Act? Let me just share some brief predictions for you. The investments in renewable energy provides, we know now from the data, business and analysts have say that the investments in renewable and energy efficiency creates 3 times more jobs on average than in any of the investments in any of the fossil fuel technologies. So we know that the IRA, since it was enacted, has already resulted in almost $500 billion in clean energy capital investment by corporations, because they know that this IRA is build out is going through 2032. Their capital investment, they're putting up their money to make these transitions to renewable energy. 123 new, expanded, reopened clean energy manufacturing facilities, 42,000 jobs. And that 42,000, I'll just say, it has, if we were a little bit looser in how we count this, it's well over hundreds and hundreds of thousands of new jobs, ancillary jobs that are associated with some of these investments in new opportunities. 5 million in green energy, 900,000 jobs in clean manufacturing, 150 in environmental justice alone, and the 1 million new jobs in building efficiency. A lot of us are focused on buildings and building efficiency. So there's going to be a lot of, and I speak to college students a lot. So we talk about the opportunities for these students who are studying sustainability, of how much of this is going into and Robert is mentioning that there's a lot of information on these jobs that are created, have created new possibilities. So next slide, please. This brings us to, let me just share, it's not so difficult when you think about the Inflation Reduction of how it works for small businesses. Let me just share with everyone. Small businesses either have buildings which they either own or lease, and advance the slide, please, or they have vehicle fleets that they either own or lease. So whether you own or lease the building, just remember that small businesses usually lease their space. Only 10% of small businesses own their building. So a lot of times we as Climate Business Working Group members and we want to take this message with the small business tenant lessee to the landlord and apply these IRA tax credits and incentives and explain the business incentives to their landlords. And that's not uncommon. So just plan on taking this information with your tenants to the landlords who actually own the building. Let me just say, it's very easy to achieve this. Inflation Reduction Act is different for residential operations than it is for businesses. Let me say, in residential, if we do our energy efficiency improvements, those are tax credits that are reset every year. So if it's tapped at 800, I'll do $800 of windows this year and $800 of windows next year and the next year and the next year. But for the business incentives, let me just share with everybody, it's the whole building system for a one-time tax incentive payment or credit. If you are a nonprofit that does not pay taxes and won't benefit from tax credits, there's a direct pay program now that will actually just pay, the IRS will just pay you what they would have paid for the tax, what you would have gotten on the tax credit. So let me share with everyone. No, stay there, Joni, go back. And if you have a new building, it's really easy for us to construct that building using modeling, saying if we use the old techniques, our energy footprint would be this. But using the new techniques, it's going to save energy, and therefore we're eligible for the IRA one-time tax credits on the whole building. But for retrofitting existing buildings, folks, it's very different. It used to be you had to achieve 50% building efficiency improvements of 50%. It's very difficult to retrofit a building with the roof and the walls and the insulation and the equipment and achieve that 50% efficiency improvement. Now that's been dropped by the IRA to 25%. And using modeling, we can make these tax credits. So let's go through a few of these and just go through and say, in Section 179D, for those organizations that are doing building efficiency upgrades that meet the prevailing wage, let's say it's Ann Arbor, Michigan, the Department of Labor for Ann Arbor has standards, And 15% of my payroll has an apprenticeship program through community colleges, union operations, or occupational training centers, then we're eligible for up to $5.65 of tax credits and rebates for the efficiency improvements on a sliding scale, depending on how much I achieve between 25 and 50%. So next slide, please. If we don't use prevailing wage and apprentice programs, we're only eligible for $1 a square foot. So let me just share with everybody what these building deductions look like. They apply to all commercial buildings. And remember what I said about the whole building. It's based on the ASHRAE standard, and the ASHRAE is just, it's going to reset everyone just in December of 26. So I just want to make sure everyone is aware. It's based on the old standard, which was done in 2007, but it's going to be upgraded using energy modeling software. We calculate our savings, and we then use by inspecting, verifying, and certifying that through using licensed engineers that we're going to achieve these efficiencies, then we get our tax credit and rebate. So next slide. There are some estimated improvements and payback periods, the applicable standards. There's some a lot of information that we can share with everybody. And again, a lot of this information is shared in the resource document that we'll be sharing with everybody periodically throughout this presentation. Next slide, please. Public buildings, just make sure that everyone is aware. For those who don't have a tax liability, they're not eligible for the IRS rebate. So just be aware there's a direct pay option. Next slide, please. And here's a fun fact just to share with everyone. The average lifespan of the commercial buildings in the United States is 50 years. The average age of our building population is 53 years. So we're already at the end of the life of a lot of these buildings. But what happens when we upgrade the building's mechanical, plumbing, electrical systems is we can extend this life out to 100 years. It's really an important part of the transforming the building sector. So I'll share with everybody what this would look like in a chart if you put it on a chart. What we will do, the number of installations in millions that is impacted by 2030 in the IRA could be up to 17 million buildings. So homes and buildings. This is including, and remember, folks, a lot of small businesses operate out of their homes. So a lot of this is impacting businesses. Next slide, please, Joni. So how does this whole building thing work? It's a combination of the building systems. Using the heating air conditioning systems combined with the water together, both 1A and 1B, lighting is always a very low-hanging fruit. We can always improve the lighting efficiencies, and then we improve the building envelope, which is just the ceiling, the walls, and the floor insulation. And by replacing the heating systems using ductless mini split inverters and variable speed pumps and fan motors, we can achieve up to 50% energy savings just by switching out the air conditioning and heating systems. Next slide.
Yes.
Water.
I think we need a little bit to get to show me the money.
Sure. That's I'll move through these. The energy savings of 60% through the water heating system. Next slide, please. And then lighting is always also important. Next slide, please. The building envelope has up to 25%. So and please don't forget about the equipment inside the building. Next slide, please. Some examples, just real briefly, if you meet these 10,000, 2,000 square foot, 10,000 square foot buildings, next slide, please. And then the larger examples of, let's just take a 10,000 square foot building. If we achieve 50% savings, we're eligible for 50,000. The examples continue with a 50,000 square foot building up to $250,000. Keep going, Joni. And then 500,000 square foot building could be up to 2.5 million. Keep going, and over $1 million, the savings and IRS tax deductions can be significant, $5 million. So I'll just leave it there and say the prevailing wage in programs is designed to be support the fair wages and training. That's what the IRA is designed to do. And let me just move forward from the apprentice program, Joni, and just say a lot of the apprentice programs can be through community colleges, occupational training centers, not just union shops these days. So The renewable tax credits also apply to the installation of solar vehicles using, again, this prevailing wage. Next slide, please. I mentioned a little bit before about the direct pay. After the direct pay program was made, the nonprofits can just apply to the IRS for these direct pay programs. These apply equally to the vehicle programs. And then I'll just say everyone is available either for $40,000 for large commercial vehicles or up to $7,500 for what you would call regular type 1, class 1, 2, and 3 vehicles. Next slide, please. Go ahead, next slide. We'll just go through these vehicles. They just, everyone be aware, they're also apply to used vehicles, and then the tax credits can be up to, for the larger vehicles, as much as $40,000 per vehicle. The cost of vehicles we can share with everyone. I can provide talking about this, but it really is much cheaper to consider battery electric vehicles. Next slide, please, Joni. The payback period is also quite impressive. If you need to convince your business owners, we could have charts to do that. Next slide, please. And then we can't forget about the vehicle fuel charging, refueling, and charging stations. So that's also an important part of the IRA. How to achieve net zero? Basically, what we need to do is apply the conservation measures, electrify the fleet, and then buy the balance of your energy either on-site or off-site from renewable sources. That's net zero. And that takes us to show me the money. Joni, let me turn it back over to you. And I appreciate your indulgence. And I'm so sorry I had to go through some of those slides pretty quick, but we want to be mindful and respectful of everybody's time. Thank you, Joni.
Okay, thank you so much, Andrew. Really, this could be a 2-hour presentation easily. It could be an all-day. It could be an all-day workshop. So, everyone hanging in with us. I will do my best to go through Show Me the Money. And basically what we have here are a bunch of resources. And Andrew has a sheet that he put into the chat, a link where you all can capture these QR codes or just go get that sheet. We just want to show you that the money is out there. The money is to be had. And we all need to be taking advantage of it because our nation wants us to get to net zero. And why not, right? There are so many benefits like we talked about. So here are a bunch of guides that you can look into, and energy efficiency loans and funding that is available. This is like so much. We could never provide this to you in detail. The IRS has information on there, the credits and deductions for businesses and energy efficiency. And here's a worksheet on prevailing wage provisions and some calculators. And their Rewiring America is really awesome. You can get on there and use their calculators to figure out how much you can save. And then very importantly is, how do you get started? You need to make a plan. And oops. All right, so you can just go into your buildings and start identifying where are you using the energy? What are your vehicles? What is your equipment? Where can you start? One idea is to do an energy audit. Another is to identify leaks, cold and hot areas. Is your building right for solar? And another thing to do is start measuring your greenhouse gas emissions, and then start developing some reduction targets and pathways, and then implement those reductions. So it may sound a little bit overwhelming, but step by step, you all can do this. And you just need to start tracking your scope 1, 2, and 3. There's all sorts of help out there to help you do this. There are tools out there. There are calculators. You can do simple ones like Cool Climate Network. The EPA offers some greenhouse gas equivalency calculators. And there are so many other organizations that give you playbooks and strategies to help you start creating a sustainability plan or a climate pollution reduction plan, climate transition plans. Another great resource is the Climate Boot Camp. We have people in Jacksonville involved in the Climate Boot Camp, in Florida involved in the Florida Boot Camp. and Andrew is involved. The climate reality leaders are in there. And this is a very comprehensive free course that happens multiple times a year. And it's by EcoActus and also the Harvard Business Alumni Group. So very quality. I want to share my own organization, Evolution University. I have a comprehensive training program to help organizations embed sustainability as a strategic driver of success. So it's throughout, developing new mindsets and skill sets like systems, circular futures, design, and strategic thinking, and it becomes the way you do business. Feel free to reach out to me about that. At the Green Chamber, we do have our Solar Collective, and this is a trustworthy, non-biased source to start a conversation about, is solar right for you? Will it be beneficial to you? Does it work in your home or business? And that is supported by Breaking Ground Contracting. So reach out to the North Florida Chamber for that. Reach out to me. It's all good. And anyway, again, Rewiring America. A lot of people have home businesses. That's another big area for electrification and tax information, etc. All sorts of calculators. How can you save? So then you just start implementing this. You can form a green team. You can conduct your energy audits. You can make it fun. This can be an enjoyable process for all of us to journey down. And it does give everyone that purpose. You're running a business with purpose where you're solving problems for people and the planet and not creating new ones in the process. And as we talked about from the beginning, the youth, especially young professionals, especially want to see that in businesses, that you're solving the problems that we have today with using fuels that are creating pollution. And so we can do better. We can get further down this path. Andrew gave us so many great examples of how that can be done. And the technology is there. It's just for us now to step up, take action, and lead that change. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and stop the share. And I do want to see if we have some questions. Hale asked if I'll be sharing the presentation. I think because it's climate reality leadership training that we can't do that, right? Right, Andrew? And we just share the links and resources instead.
The slideshow probably be available as a PDF is fine. We have the resources guide as well, and that is freely shareable with any of your friends and networks and neighbors or whoever you want to share it with. So Joni will make that available. And then there was some other questions about. Hey, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. Yeah. So let's just cruise through the chat and see, and also invite people. Andrew, if you want to cruise through the chat, and then I'll invite people and look for raised hands if anyone would like to ask questions. We are at the 1 o'clock. I know some of you are on a clock and have to hop off, but I can stay and for a little bit longer and handle questions and address some of these issues.
Let me just say it's been our pleasure to be able to bring this information to you. Both Joni and I and the Climate Business Working Group are available to help anyone that needs any further assistance or information on this. We also have a short version of this presentation when we realize that would be more appropriate for some of these business presentations.
Yes, we can give this presentation to other groups. We can do a shorter version of it, a longer version of it. And of course, we can also present the Al Gore's iconic slide deck and all of that information there if you want to get people inspired about climate change and climate action. That's updated all of the time, consistently. So it's fresh and new with what's happening. Let's see. All right. Any info on jobs created by position and average pay rate? Oh, that would be good. Robert asked that question. I guess that might vary across the country, Andrew, or what do you think about that?
The information, the information in the IRA and the jobs are already, I'll just say, I speak to a lot of college students. So the integration of sustainability jobs and job opportunities and career opportunities with youth, and the integration with taking advantage of some of the funding available from the IRA is already happening, folks. A lot of these college students all over the country, in every university, at all the community college levels, are working on programs that would help them with the municipalities achieving resiliency, taking advantage of some of these infrastructure changes. I'll just share with everyone the jobs related to the creation of wind turbines is the fastest growing job in America. And with the funding available through the IRA and the bipartisan infrastructure, we're looking at millions of jobs that are going to change people's focus in the pathway that they're traveling in their university and their educational career. So it's already changed. That's the a number and people that I speak to, particularly, and I know Robert in Minneapolis. So thank you for the question, Robert. Did that help you, Robert, or do you want to want to elaborate? Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate the question. Joni, any other questions that you see in there?
So Bill asked, will we be able to share the recording with our township environmental board to discuss prior to making a pitch to our municipality? Yes. We'd love it.
And it's really much too long. We would help you in your municipality in your presentation to your municipality. Joni and I would help you prepare much more succinct presentation of just 10 minutes. And Dean Barone is our leader who is on the call today. I see Al and Michael Lynn with us as well. So lots of us can help your business people who are on this call. All you need to do is just write us. I'll put our contact information in the chat for everybody to reach the Climate Business Working Group. It's just very easy. It's info@climatebusiness.biz. So I will put that information in, and thank you, Joni.
Awesome. Okay, let's see. We have a question from Larry. This is a local North Florida question. How much is JEA, that's Jacksonville Electric Authority, using to get rid of its coal-fired plant without converting to its natural gas and getting to 30% clean by 2030? So what's been happening here is we did get rid of a coal plant. You know, we still have at least one or two, I don't know, at least one. But we're going to natural gas instead of going to renewable. We had some effort for solar farms. We don't have, I'm not thinking we have much wind or any wind going on here. I'm not a JEA expert in that. But why isn't JEA leaping to solar in Florida? It's an awesome question. And it may be the investment costs, but I would imagine the IRA and the BIL would help a lot with that. What do you think, Andrew?
I agree. I'm so excited about the amount of funding and the way it's being directed, Joni. It's impressive that this, and we've already seen the impact considerably, not just in California. These are all over, particularly in my part. I'm from, as I mentioned, Texas. So my part of the country is family and everybody there. So places in the country like Texas and other areas are going to be benefiting greatly from this. So I agree.
Yes, we can make this change. I know there are people within JEA who have been wanting this, been pushing for it, and it's kind of like starts and stops happening in there.
Joni, if I might be able to just share my screen real briefly too, I'd like to just make everyone aware of an opportunity here to participate in something called We Electrify My Life. This is from the Climate Reality Project. Can everybody see this screen?
Yes, take the first step.
Yeah, take the first step. So what we want to do is just ask everyone for the Climate Reality Project, if you would like to take the first step in something called Electrify My Life, Climate Reality Project has a program that will help you do this. All you need to do is you can put your phone up and capture this QR code and take the pledge to Electrify My Life, and you'll be asked to plug in your information, and then you'll be given some instructions on how to participate in this. So it's important to us as we move forward to get people to understand how easy this can be. So I'll leave this up for just a second, Joni, for people who want to take this pledge. And please understand, there's no obligation. The hurdles on Electrify My Life are quite easy, and anyone can opt out of this at any time. So it's not really a burden, and the emails are quite sparse. I'll just say that.
Yeah, so I love that. I've done it. I invite everyone to go ahead and do that, and invite everyone to stay on the path and and keep going. And you're going to hear people say, why buy an electric vehicle when we don't have the infrastructure? Why buy an electric vehicle when, you know, Florida or North Florida is still running on gas? Hey, all of these pieces of the puzzle need to come together, and every step matters. And if we had it all together, we'd be living in the future. And we're not living in the future. We're creating that future right now, all of us. So don't let the naysayers who say, hey, we don't have all this in place or all that in place. Of course we don't. We're in the journey of putting it all together. So everyone keep moving. I just want to encourage you.
And let me just mention, Pamela has mentioned that she's working with SoCal Edison. A lot of these resources, the energy audits and accessing some of these benefits are available through your energy company that provides your electricity. So please, everybody, think about that.
One more thing I'd like to say, Andrew, is that
Sure.
we're doing a lot for affordable housing, workforce housing and affordable housing, low income housing, all of it, you know. Let's say all income ranges. We're behind on housing in Florida. So important that what goes into a house that's newly built today, or an apartment or a condo, has a very, very long-term effect on our climate pollution. We've got to be building those houses with heat pumps, with you know, solar opportunities, with electric and no gas. We've got to be setting ourselves up for the future when we're building these new houses. I just want to say that to everyone. These are big decisions that we make now for a better future. So.
And let me address David's comment in the chat about the decision tree, making a decision tree on how you move forward on some of these stepwise procedures on taking your corporation in a much more sustainable direction. And he mentions the use of artificial intelligence or a personalized IRA coach built in, meaning some sort of assistance in this. And I'll just say a lot of us and a lot of people all over the world are using different ways of technology. And I'll just share with our audience today. I'm working with the Los Angeles City Council, particularly with Councilmember Blumenfield, on using artificial intelligence. They're doing some wonderful things in Sweden and Norway and Amsterdam on building resilient cities using artificial intelligence to find out what is Amsterdam and Sydney and Hong Kong doing in different ways, and then sort of amplifying and collaborating with other municipalities to build resiliency and sustainability into all of our work. So yes, David, the answer is yes. We have considered decision trees. There are people already using artificial intelligence to assist them on their sustainability journey.
Wonderful. Yeah, there's so much to learn from other cities who are already doing it or further along the path, and other builders and other businesses. So yeah, I love that. You know,
I was so impressed to work with the Los Angeles City Council member and Blumenfield on this project, because it's exciting. I'm sort of new to the area, and it kind of intrigues me a little bit, and so I'm interested in it.
Awesome.
Thanks for the question, David. Any other questions in the chat? We've got some more. I know everybody's pressed for time, and so we're grateful for everybody's participation today.
Wonderful. Yes. Thank you. Thank you all so much for being here. A huge thank you to Andrew and the Climate Business Working Group for putting this together for us, this presentation. I'm grateful to be part of this, to bring it to our community. and also to co-present today. So it was my first time, and so really appreciate the
So
opportunity.
proud. I'm so proud of the work we've done together, Joni, and it's been my pleasure.
Thank you so much, Andrew. It's really been a really great journey this year, working locally in climate action planning with the North Florida region, and to work with all of you and to continue this journey with everyone. So thank you all so much for being here.